Are you at the end of your rope? Do you feel at times it would be better if you just gave up trying? Have you held in your problems so long that they seem to have become your way of life, thinking nothing could or will help you? I encourage you not to lose hope. In the Bible, there is a story of a man who had no hope of ever being healed and was at the point he had no desire to help himself. The man's situation seemed hopeless. Yours doesn't have to be. No matter how trapped you are feeling right now, there is hope. We find this man's story in the book of John, chapter 5. As the story begins, we find ourselves in the city of Jerusalem by a pool, which is located near the sheep market. The pool was well known by all who lived in or around the city. It seemed to have a special healing power when the pool became agitated. Surrounding the pool were 5 roof-covered porches with very large columns. Here, many sick and handicapped people waited for the sudden and mysterious moving of the otherwise quiet waters. People believed that periodically an angel would come down from heaven and disturb the water, and the first person who was able to get into the pool would be healed. One of those who waited was a man who had been paralyzed for 38 years. As Jesus walked beside the columns of the porch around the pool, apparently meditating and praying, he saw wretched sufferers watching and waiting for that which they supposed to be their only chance for healing. Oh, Jesus longed to exercise his healing power and make every sufferer whole. But it was the Sabbath. Multitudes were going to the temple to worship, and he knew that an act of healing would excite the prejudice of the Jewish leaders and would cut short his work. But Jesus saw this man laying there on his mat, who had been a helpless cripple for so many years. His disease, to a great deal, was a result of his own sin, and as a result, the priest looked upon him as one who was receiving punishment from God. The man felt alone and friendless, believing he was shut out from God's mercy. At the time when it was expected that the water was to stir, he was helpless and had no one to help him into the water. The sick man would occasionally lift his head to gaze at the pool, when all of a sudden a tender, compassionate face bent over him and asked him this one simple question: "Would you like to be healed?" The sick man barely looked up, but strained his voice to talk and said, "Sir, there is no one here to help me into the pool at the right time. When I try to make it to the pool by myself, the others push and shove and always get in before I do. So there's no use. I'm ready to give up." Jesus looked at him and said, "I'm not here to help you get into the water. I'm here to tell you to stand up on your feet." Jesus did not ask the sufferer to exercise faith in him. Jesus simply said, "Rise, pick up your bed, and walk." The man's faith took hold upon him. He heard Jesus' words, and every nerve and muscle in his body came to life, and he rose to his feet. He reached down, rolled up his mat, and turned to thank Jesus. But Jesus had disappeared into the crowd. So the man tucked his mat under his arm and headed toward his home. When the Jewish leaders saw the man carrying his mat, they stopped him and said, "Don't you know that it's the Sabbath and it's against the law to be carrying your bed?" The man answered, "The one who healed me told me to pick up my mat and go home." At this point, the priest asked him, "Who asked you to do that?" The man could not answer their question because he really didn't know who healed him. He said, "He seemed to have vanished into the crowd." Later that day, Jesus saw the man in the temple praising God and thanking God for his healing. Jesus walked up to him and said, "Oh, it's good to see you're well. But be careful. Don't return to your old lifestyle, or you might end up with something worse than what you had before." After hearing this, the man went to the priest and told them that it was Jesus who had healed him, and told him to take up his bed and go home. When the Jewish leaders heard this report, they began zealously pursuing Jesus, looking for a chance to arrest him and stone him as a Sabbath breaker. In their judgment, he had not only broken the law in healing the sick man, but also had told the man to carry his mat. The Jewish leaders had so perverted the scriptures with so many man-made laws that they made the Sabbath an intolerable burden. Jesus came to this earth to teach us and show us that it is good to be compassionate and caring for others. Sabbath is to be a day of delight and not an impossible burden. This man had been lame or paralyzed. Suddenly he could walk. Oh, this was a great miracle. But he needed an even greater miracle, to have his sins forgiven. The man was delighted to be physically healed, but he had to turn from his sins and seek God's forgiveness to be spiritually healed. God's forgiveness is the greatest gift you will ever receive. Don't neglect his offer. He is the great physician. Friends, this story is in the Bible to encourage you that there is hope for all of us. We can be so thankful that Jesus was there for this man, and we can have the same assurance that Jesus is here for us today, no matter what we have done. We are living in a very challenging times, also exciting time. We need more than ever to put our trust in God and turn our lives completely over into His hands. Jesus is the healer, the compassionate friend to help us meet our needs. His love for each of us is so immeasurable to the extent He was willing to go to the cross to save us. What the world needs today is Jesus. In Jesus, there is no fear, no lack, but there is a hope and certainty. Won't you place your life in Jesus' hands today? There is hope. Remember, Jesus loves you.